Which boat is best?
I don't know.
No one knows which boat is best. That's why this question always comes up again and again and again.
Maybe it's the speedboat.
Speedboat.
Yeah, it's really the fastest.
Okay, but now we're talking about sailboats.
I know.
Sailboats are not fast.
I know already.
So which is the best sailboat?
I don't know.
No one knows. But there is a best sailboat for everyone in their circumstances. And that's what everyone is trying to figure out. That's why this question comes up a lot. And even though there's already a lot of content like this on YouTube, I figured I would share how I was thinking when I figured out which sailboat is best for us. One of the things that I looked at is the comfort ratio, which is a mathematical formula that describes how much the boat is moving when it's hitting waves. If it's cutting through the waves, it gets a high number, and if it just keeps bobbing up and down, it gets a low number. One thing that helps a boat cut through waves is the shape of the the front of the boat, but also if the shape of the back of the boat is narrowing, that helps the boat to cut through waves. Another thing that helps a boat cut through waves is the weight of the boat. A light boat is going to float more easily and be more affected by waves. So you want to have a high comfort, you want narrow boat in both ends with a lot of weight. Of course, if you have a narrow boat in both ends, then you get less volume inside the boat. You get a smaller boat, less storage. And that's why I included these boats for comparison. Now, the Havsvidra is one of those boats that is narrowing in the front and back. It gets a high comfort ratio, even though it's a very small and light boat. The Albin Vega is also a small and light boat, but bigger than the Havsvidra. Not so much heavier though. So the comfort ratio is not much different. Sirius Yachts is a very heavy boat. So even though it's not much bigger, it has a very high comfort ratio. The Beneteau is, I think, one of the more popular boats on the market. If you look at new boats, I mean, these boats were constructed in the 1960s. Definitely not new boats. But as you can see, the comfort ratio, you're not much more comfortable in this new boat. And one of the reasons for that, despite all the advances in design, is because the back of the boat is very wide. And then the boat tends to be pushed more by waves and have less comfort. Even the 60-foot boat, which is twice as big and you would expect it to be able to cut through waves, doesn't have that high of a comfort ratio because it's so wide in the back, which means that the weight, even though there is a lot of weight, it's not really pushing through the waves in the same way. So this small boat is quite good, well designed in terms of comfort. And this comfort ratio, because it has to do with waves and stuff, is also going to describe how seasick you get when you get out. If you have a low number, you'll probably get seasick a lot easier than if you have a high number. So if you're one of those people that easily get seasick, you want to look for a boat with a high number. Now we look at the Beneteau 60 foot just for comparison. And what I want to get you thinking about is the function of the boat. You have functional areas of every boat. And the first functional area here is the bedroom, where a big boat like this has 3 bedrooms because you need more people to handle a big boat. You cannot just go yourself on this boat and single-handedly sail around the world. Forget about it. The next functional area is the dinette, where you would also have, it's like a living room. You would sit there, you may have a TV, you may have books to read, you may have conversations, but I call it a dinette because the main function is you're going to sit there and eat food. And the food is made in the kitchen, of course, which on this boat is fairly large because you have to cook for a lot of people. Now, here you have the luxury of having a toilet with every bedroom, and also at least 2 showers. I'm not sure if there's a shower here, could be. I don't really know this boat. I just brought up the picture of it, but then you have a work area.
1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, buckle my 5, 6, 19 kicks.
We're talking about boats, not shoes. Anyway, I guess you could call a boat the shoe as a nickname. Anyway, the Albin Vega is the boat that I currently have. As you see, it's narrowing in the back, it's narrowing in the front. The weight is mainly in the center of the boat because of the long keel. But I think the center of gravity is around here somewhere. Anyway, having the weight in the center of the boat increases comfort. Now you have the same functional areas here as well. You have the bedroom, which is in the front, because that's what people say, that having the bedroom in the front is the most comfortable. I guess it's also a little bit hidden away if you want to take a nap while others are sitting in the dinette and talking. You also have a kitchen, of course, and you have a toilet. What you do not have, compared to the big boat, is a designated work area and a shower. So showering would have to be in the cockpit, which if you shower outside, that's fine if you're at sea. If you're in a marina or a harbor, people may be looking at you a bit strangely, but I guess it works. The work area is going to be the dinette. You just have to combine the areas in a sense. The Beneteau 30-foot is very similar to the 60-foot. It's just that you have 2 bedrooms instead of 3, and you have dinette, kitchen, toilet. Toilet could be a shower as well, I guess. I'm not sure. In any case, you could probably install a shower there. But what is the main difference between the 60-foot and this 30-foot is the amount of space you have for storage. I mean, you have storage here, but you would have so much more storage on the 60-foot. Whereas the 27-foot Albin Vega is actually not that different. The main difference is that the width of the boat here makes it possible to make another bedroom. But which, of course, you could remove the bedroom and use it as storage instead, and then you get a lot more storage. So this wide end at the back, yes, it gives more space, but it decreases comfort. Serious yachts. This is the 31-footer. This is the boat I would buy if I had tons of money. Again, you have a bedroom in the front. The next functional area is the kitchen, which is here next to the wall, alongside the wall, so you can walk by. You have standing room, ample of room when you're cooking. Big toilet, dedicated shower, and a huge work area, which has a workbench in this example, but I've also heard of people having laundry machines and stuff like that in here when they are living on the boat. Now, what you're gonna say is, where are we going to eat the food? We cannot lie in bed to eat. Well, the dinette is actually vertically stacked with the work area, which is a very clever design feature on this boat. It's somewhat similar to the way you design a catamaran, and I feel like this is a very modern and and well thought through way of designing a boat. Of course, it does cost a little bit more. Um, the 60 footer costs 15 million Swedish, whereas the 30 footer Beneteau only costs 1.4 million. So we could afford the Beneteau 30 footer. We could not afford the serious yachts in our current situation. But since the Albin Vega is so much cheaper, just the price tag makes the Albin Vega the perfect boat for us. Of course, when you buy an old boat, there is going to be some work with it, no matter how nice condition it is in. I mean, there's work on new boats as well. No boat is without work, but more work on an old boat. So we actually bought our boat, cost 25,000 Swedish when we bought it, but renovations, etc., means that the cost is currently at around 100,000, which is what you would expect. If you buy the Albin Vega and you pay 100,000, you will expect to have that Albin Vega in very good condition, considering it's an old boat. But yeah, the best boat for you is probably the boat you can afford, right? Now, when I started getting interested in sailing and sailboats, it was because I went to a seminar by Sven Yrvind, who was then called Sven Lundin. He changed his name, but he wrote a book. He been sailing for many years. He has a YouTube channel where he publishes content almost every day. He's a very interesting fellow, and his philosophy is that since you get more force on larger size boat, the best boat is the smallest boat possible. And just to illustrate this, the wind speed at the mast top can be calculated by taking the wind speed at the boat, when you're standing in the cockpit, and multiply it with the height to the power of 0.11. So if you have a 10-meter mast, in the cockpit the wind is 10 knots, then it's going to be 13. It's going to be 13 knots of wind at the top of the mast. For the 60-foot boat, the mast is twice as high, 21 meters. 10 knots in the cockpit means 14 knots of wind at the top of the mast. This may not seem like a huge difference, but like Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and I will move the world. A long lever means a lot more force. So twice as high mast is much more than twice as much force on the boat. So you need stronger stays, you need stronger mast, you need stronger everything to manage this. So just comparing some numbers, you see that the big Beneteau 60-foot boat has twice the size of the half-size boat, which is roughly equivalent mast size and boat length. The mainsail area, however, increases with a square, which means that the force on the sails is a lot higher on a bigger boat. And on the Albin Vega, I don't need a winch. I can use my hands to pull the rope. But you can forget about using your hands on the big boats. You have to have equipment to deal with it. And if that equipment breaks, you're gonna break. So same goes for the engine. A lot more horsepower is needed to push a big boat. Now for the Sirius, they have actually a much bigger engine that they need to have. For me on the Albin Vega, I changed on my boat to an electric engine with 3 kilowatts. So, I mean, you don't need a big engine to push a small boat. These engine sizes are oversized because in a storm with high waves, you need to push more. But in a storm with high waves, first of all, you should try to avoid that in the first place. But if you find yourself in a storm, what you should do is you should heave to and not continue sailing or driving by engine. Anyway, sail area divided with the displacement, the weight of the boat, is something that tells you the force of the sails, how much it's able to push the boat forward. And for the Beneteau, this is a large number because you need a lot of force to push this heavy boat forward. For the Sirius, you have the lowest number because it's a very heavy boat. And the Albin Vega has this little bit higher number than the Beneteau actually. What this means is that when you start from zero, just raise the sails. If you're in a race or something, the Albin Vega gets off to a good start, whereas the Sirius falls behind. On the other hand, if you go sailing for a long time, the Albin Vega has a hull speed that is less because it's a shorter boat. So for a very long journey, like crossing the Atlantic, is going to take a longer time in the Albin Vega than these ones, which is something you may want to keep in mind if that's what you want to do. For me, I'm not in a rush. I'm happy to go slow. I also included water according to specifications here because 2 people with 64 liters, you can stay at sea 30 days if you use 2 liters per day, which means you can cross the Atlantic in a month. Probably possible with this boat, even though it's slower. With the Sirius, you have a lot more water on 2 people, which means you can shower in fresh water sometimes, or it means that you can go on very long journeys without having to stop for water. And of course, with a large boat, you get even more per person. This is a safety feature if you're on long trips, and it's a comfort feature if you're just in the harbor. You don't have to fill the tank as much. Anyway, going back to power, you see that it's an exponential relationship between boat size, weight, and the power that is needed for sails or the power that is needed for the motor. What you can see here as well, if you compare the boats, is that the Beneteau has oversized sails to push the boat as much as possible in weak winds and stuff, whereas the Sirius has an overpowered engine, maybe because in Germany, where that boat is made, it is fairly common to go on the canals, so you use the engine more, or I don't know, whatever the reason is. Now the wind power also increases exponentially with wind speed. You get higher dynamic pressure from the wind. It increases exponentially, but that is also related to the air density. Like if you're in a high pressure system with sunshine, the wind pushes more than if you're in a low pressure system with which is usually when there's a storm or bad weather. So low pressure system, you have high wind, stormy weather, which pushes the boat as much as clear weather, a lot lower wind speeds. But the relationship is exponential, and that exponential relationship also combines with the exponential relationship of sail area and stuff, which gives you much, much, much more force on the boat when you have a big boat. So now, if we conclude this and say that, well, okay, we want a minimum size boat, the smallest boat possible, but I also want some comfort in the boat, then what is the smallest possible boat we can imagine? Well, in the front of the boat, you want a sleeping area, which is 2 meters long, Somewhere in the boat, you want a dinette that can be converted to another sleeping area because there's 4 of us in our family. So that's 4 meters. You want a kitchen, that's 1 meter. You want a toilet, that's another meter. And you want to be able to get out of the boat and go out into a cockpit, which is at least 1 meter, probably more. So absolute minimum size of a boat is somewhere around 7 meters, is my conclusion. So the boat that I started dreaming about when I started looking at boats was the Havsvidra, which is a 20-foot boat. It's designed in the 1960s, I think. So it's fairly old, but it's very good design. One of the first plastic boats that was made in Sweden. And you have the sleeping area in the front. You have the dinette that can be converted to a sleeping area, even though it's very short, so you're not going to be comfortable. You have the kitchen area, but you do not have a toilet, so you have to use a bucket. You do not have a shower, so you have to use the cockpit for showers. So the comfort in that way is not optimal, and for that reason, it's not optimal when you have a family like I have, and people have their own requirements of privacy when they go to the toilet, etc. But for me, if I didn't have my family, this would be the perfect boat. The Beneteau. Oh, that's what I should say about this boat too, is that it's a long keel boat. Long keel boats have a distinct advantage when you go long distance because it's very course steady. It holds the course much easier. It has a distinct disadvantage when you're in harbor because it's more difficult to make small maneuvers, turn the boat around, find your spot in the harbor. Uh, uh, but it is better for keeping the course, which is especially good on a small boat that may be less course stable for other reasons. Now, microphone fell. The long keel is also a security feature because when you heave to, if you end up in stormy weather, you want to have a long keel to break the boat from going sideways, so you don't end up in some cliffs or something. But if you are out driving, it's another security feature because if you're like me, unexperienced, and you hit ground, this is much more sturdy. It can take a hit on rocks or something, which makes it more safe. Anyway, the Beneteau modern boat is with a fin keel, which is the way that most modern boat is designed, but it's less safe. It is easier to maneuver the boat, faster to turn, but it's not really optimal for my purposes. I'm not a racer. I don't need to get around a buoy as fast as possible. I just want to go from point A to point B, and I'm not in a hurry. So um, what you see is that the back of the boat here goes up to the waterline very fast because the boat is very wide in the rear end, whereas this boat with a long keel has a lot of boat under the water, which is also because it is narrowing in the back, giving that more comfort but reducing the space. For the big Beneteau 60-footer, you see that even more clearly. Even the back fins appear to be above the waterline to some extent. Also a fin keel, and as you can see, the whole interior of the boat is down in the boat, which means, okay, yeah, you can go out on top of the deck and run laps or something, I guess, to get exercise. But in the boat, you're enclosed, and it's like being in a house on the water. And because of that, this is such a good design because the dinette is up here and the navigation station is up here. When you sit here, you can see all around the boat everywhere, much like a catamaran, which is really nice. And the work area is below that. A little bit cramped. I mean, you're obviously not going to be able to stand in there. You're going to have to sit on the floor, but still, you have a huge work area, which I think is a really nice design feature. Also, with the Sirius boats, you're able to get them as a bilge keel or a twin keel, whatever you want to call it, which means it can stand on its own. Now, in Sweden, we don't have tidal water, so the boat is not going to stand like this in Sweden. But we do have winters in Sweden. We have to lift the boats onto land, and being able to just put the boat down like this on land seems to me like a very nice feature. So much easier to paint the boat or do something than like today we have to put a lot of supports around it. Um, Even though the Sirius is not that much bigger than the Albin Vega, it does have a lot of room inside, which, I mean, to me, this just looks like very spacious luxury, which is nice. It's nice to have space. That's why bigger boats are popular. But it's not safe to have space. So when they are able to create space with these intelligent design choices, I think that's what makes this boat so attractive. If you want to go down to the work area here, you lift this seat and you climb down into the work area under the dinette. It's just clever. For the Albin Vega, you're not able to run laps on top. You're not able to move around inside the boat much at all because it is a rather small boat, but you have all the things that you need. And fairly good comfort, fairly good storage for both sails and food and whatever else you want to bring. So it is a very well designed boat. Now what I did to change our boat is I removed the diesel engine and I put electric engine instead. The diesel engine weighs at least 100 kilograms. The electric weighs a few kilograms, which decreases comfort. What is added is the batteries, and I used lead acid batteries, which I had to put up here for practical reasons. Moving weight to the back of the boat decreases comfort. So optimally, I would want to move these batteries to the keel of the boat to get the weight centered and get the weight very low. Right now, the batteries are above the waterline, which is not the best solution. Of course, I use lead acid batteries. They are fairly large, which means they don't really fit here. Not all of them, anyway. I may be able to put some of them under the seats instead of back here, but getting them here would be a nice thing. Of course, a lot of people who use electric motors, they use lithium batteries, but personally, I would not put lithium batteries down here where it's very common to have water, because lithium and water will melt a hole through the boat. Doesn't seem safe to me, but you know, to each his own. If you want to do it like that, go ahead. So what is the best boat? Well, for me, the best boat today is the Albin Vega. The Havsvidar would be the best boat if I didn't have a family to bring along. The Albin Vega is better because it provides a little bit more space than the Havsvidar. If I didn't have the Albin Vega, if I couldn't look at any of those boats, what I would be looking at is probably something like a Westsail 28. But I've never seen one of these for sale in Sweden. If I want to buy one of these, I would have to go to the US or something, which means a long flight over there just to look at the boat, see if it's okay. That costs a lot of money. And then if I decide to buy a boat, I would have to sail it long distance just to get it home before I can start using it. So that difficulty moves the west sail down the list. If I have a west sail outside Örnsköldsvik, yeah, sure, move it up in the list. Best boat after winning the jackpot on a big lottery. Well, as I said, I would go for a Series Yachts. The 35 is nice. The 31 is a bit smaller, but they actually stopped producing them. They may be available 2027 or something according to their homepage, but right now, this is the smallest Series Yachts you can get. If you can't get that one, and if for some reason I wouldn't be able to get that one, I would be willing to move up in size because this is a very nice design in general. If Series Yachts disappear, bankruptcy or something from the market, well, the Fountain Pajot Elba 45 foot is a nice boat. It is very big though, and that concerns me a little bit. Then if we win the jackpot on a big lottery, we can afford to buy this. Then we can also afford to have really good weather services. We can stay away from bad weather, and we can pay the higher harbor fees that catamarans get, and so on and so forth. If that wasn't available either, well, the Hallberg Rossi is a nice boat, but again, we would have to move up in size to get a decent one. So it turns out to be a rather big boat. I would still say these boats are actually better than these in many ways. Even though they're old, even though they're small, or maybe because they're small. But if you have a lot of money, well, yeah, you can compensate the security issues and other downsides with these boats by using even more money after you buy it. So with unlimited finances, this is a good list. With my current situation, some limitations, I would stick around this. Anyway, hope that that gives you some insight into my own way of thinking, and maybe you can use it to form your opinion of what's the best boat for you. Everyone are going to have their own answer on what the best boat is because everyone has different circumstances, different limitations, different preferences. Anyway, that's it.